I watch and review one Detective Conan movie a week until the release of the brand new film in April 2024. I'll tell you what the movie is about, the good, the bad, and anything else interesting of note. And at the end of each video, I rank the movies watched in the tier list to see exactly which films are the best in the series. And today we have movie 22, Detective Conan Zero the Enforcer. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Zero the Enforcer premiered in Japanese theaters on April 13th, 2018 and was directed by Yuzuru Tachikawa, famous for directing Death Parade and Mob Psycho 100, together with a screenplay from Takeharu Sakurai. I'm watching you. The film follows Conan and Amuro, or Ray, or Bourbon, or Zero. Jesus, how many names does this guy need? As they investigate a series of technological terrorist acts. Kogoro is framed for the crimes, and now Conan and Ray must find a way to free him before the world crumbles from this digital disaster. I think that this movie, in my opinion, is the most unique Conan film we've gotten since Phantom of Baker Street. The film just oozes a different atmosphere than anything that came before it. Everything is duller, heavier, more serious, and I honestly love it. This movie isn't perfect, mind you, and we'll get to that in a second, but this film definitely tries to distinguish itself from the other 22 films. Now, I first want to address some comments I've seen over the past few months before watching this movie, calling this movie the Amuro Show. I can tell you right now, it most certainly is not. Frankly, Amuro is barely even a main character in this until the very end. He makes appearances here and there, and they even tease that he might be one of Conan's adversaries during the film. This plot thread, however, simply goes nowhere, and Amuro is kinda just lurking around until the final act. I would actually say he basically serves the same purpose as any other leads like Heiji or Sarah in their respective films with Conan. Now, for the look of this film, oh my goodness, this film's looks and tone are so good. Admittedly not as breathtaking as movie 10's mise-en-scène, but it still brings this grounded, almost gritty atmosphere with it. The grays, the subtle greens, kind of like The Matrix or something. Also, kudos to director Tachikawa because we get some really beautiful shots in this movie. I mean, look at some of these screenshots I took. It's so Windows wallpaper-esque. Now, it's Detective Conan, so we have to ask, how is that mystery? Well, that's a bit of a difficult answer because I feel like they went slightly too far in some aspects, but also not far enough in other aspects. Let me explain. The film revolves around Mori being framed for a bombing that he didn't commit. The problem is, all the evidence points to him. This immediately creates a very interesting dynamic because we know for a fact that Mori is innocent, but all the facts point to him committing the crime. So now we're left genuinely confused. His friends in the police force are conflicted, his family are experiencing the emotional turmoil of the legal system, and hell, even Conan is really rattled by this, and we as the viewers share in all of their pain. On top of the fact that we have a genuine mystery on our hands to prove Mori's innocence. So immediately the setup is already god tier to me, but then we get to the legal stuff in the movie. This movie delves deep into Japan's judicial system, and frankly it's confusing as all hell. Even after rewinding the scene upwards of 10 times, I still could barely make out what they're really talking about. I just don't think the movie does a good enough job explaining the different branches of Japan's judicial system and all their interactions with one another. We basically get exposition dumped all this information in a matter of seconds, and if you're not already familiar with any of these like I was, and I'm sure many other fans were as well, I'd bet you'd totally be lost. Now, I'm no lawyerist, but I think I kinda have a grasp on what's going on. Definitely take this with a grain of salt though. This is just how I understood what they were talking about. There are 3 branches of authority in Japan's legal system: the Public Prosecutor Office, the Tokyo Police Department, and their pseudo-superior/contemporaries, the National Police Agency, NPA for short. Each of these branches have their own public security branch. Basically, they're the ones in charge to actually take action when something arises, and they also have their own agendas. Like, keep this in mind. So how does Mori's case fit into all this? Well, since Mori is numero uno suspect, the 3 branches basically play a game of hot potato with the case with each other, with them individually investigating the case and getting each other's input on what action should be taken next. A fairly straightforward democratic process. Now, this is where the kicker comes in. As explained by newly introduced lawyer character Tachibana, despite the process being as such in theory, in practice it's actually very different. Due to certain inequalities amongst investigators between the branches, in simple terms, a certain branch may just want to simply prosecute Mori as fast as possible to basically quell public unrest, even if their investigations into Mori's innocence weren't fully explored. This is the gap in Japan's legal system the movie is alluding to, and Mori and his family are suffering because of it, which is why it was quite a surprise for me when we find out that Mr. Terrorist Culprit guy was trying to fight this injustice all along. He committed all these crimes to potentially sow enough doubt and disarray within the public about public security that I guess it would dissolve them completely? Okay, the movie never really clearly explains what exactly was his endgame, but his motive was there and it was kinda, dare I say, relatable. His ambiguous moral compass made for a really interesting character. He had no issue doing all these terrorist acts, but was unwilling to see an innocent man like Mori be charged. This made him a really nuanced villain, and I'm glad to say is a big step up from some of the dumbasses we've been having in the recent films. And the action being completely balls to the wall crazy is pretty expected with these movies. It's borderline superhuman, some of these acts, but I honestly don't mind. They're really fun. Some funny things I did notice though is that Conan does a completely unnecessary kickflip with his skateboard while trying to escape flying vehicles. And also that scene where Amuro calls Japan his lover.
恋人はこの国さ。
But man, overall this movie really surprised me. Is it as bad as some people make it out to be? I don't think so. This movie has some quality writing, a genuinely interesting exploration of Japan's legal system if you can get through the learning curve, junk food action, emotional stakes, a nuanced villain. It admittedly has its issues, but I would call this movie a diamond in the rough. And for me anyway, it deserves to go up there in the B tier. Hope you guys enjoyed. See you all next week for a very special and different review for movie 23, Detective Conan: The Fist of the Blue Sapphire. I hope to see you all there. Bye bye.